Pope could play long to the left to help test Van Heck, or play shorter passes to draw the Brighton press high to create space for those longer balls for the forwards, or play balls round the corner into the number 8's dropping. In midfield possession, Willock and Joelinton alternated being CDMs and number 8, helping Guimaraes, or helping combine with their wide midfielders and making runs beyond them. Newcastle corner kicks heavily congested the 6-yard box, causing Steele to struggle against the flat, whipped deliveries, and Trippier had numerous free kick opportunities as Brighton fouled to stop Newcastle counterattacks. Brighton consistently played passes central initially, despite Newcastle's press, contributing to Newcastle regains, but also drawing the Newcastle press central and creating passing angles into the forwards. Brighton alternated their deep build-up after the subs, but continued to play initial passes central, and the fullbacks alternated being narrow or wide to help the midfielders, or push higher to let the wide midfielders narrow. Brighton struggled to progress to midfield possession initially, but were able to after the subs, with Caicedo and McAllister alternating CDM and number 8 duties to help the narrow wide midfielders create centrally as well as contest crosses, helped by the alternating fullbacks pushing higher. Of course, this created more space for Newcastle counterattacks. Okay, so I wanted to start in the 6th minute with Brighton's deep build-up in a 2-4 shape. The fullbacks extremely wide and the centre midfielders very narrow. Newcastle's forwards were very narrow to cover the centre midfielders, and then the near side of the 2 forwards. So in this case, Almiron will go to press whoever receives the ball first to try and pressure them into passing towards the other side, where the number 8s who are high to try and press the Brighton fullback would then be able to engage the press here and make it difficult for Brighton to be able to find their centre forwards Welbeck and Unda between the lines. I should mention here there's a level of man marking to this as well. On this occasion, Brighton don't pass into their centre midfielders centrally, but generally they did. Anyway, we get to see them pass down the right hand side, and with the intensity of the press, we actually end up seeing Almiron all the way here on the left hand side, helping Joelinton to press Caicedo, helped by how nonchalant Van Heck's pass was. I can't overstate how relentless Newcastle's press was. We got to see the product of it again here, with Newcastle winning the ball off a Brighton throw-in and being able to start a counter-attack, with Brighton trying to transition back to a defensive shape, which leads to Newcastle finding Willock, one of the number 8s, running beyond his wide midfielder Isaac here, getting in behind Caicedo because Gilmour, the centre midfielder, is the one covering him and doesn't want to track him tightly, which leads to a half chance for Newcastle. This focus on regaining in Brighton's half, capitalising on Brighton's propensity for short passes during deep build-up, was the main source of Newcastle's attacks. From that, we get to see one of Newcastle's many corner kicks, where Trippier provides a flat and whipped in-swinging delivery into a congested 6-yard box. Other examples were such as the corner kick in the 35th minute, and then of course just his dead ball delivery from free kicks, as we saw from the get-go in the 2nd minute. In defending the corner kick, Brighton were awarded a free kick, and we see yet another example of their 2-4 deep build-up, again with one of the forwards in that narrow shape that they have, trying to press from their side towards the other side. Steele reverses the momentum of that play, taking it back to the left-hand side, where Dunk then attempts to play a longer ball, and we get to see the deeper 3-2 in the Newcastle press, where one of Shah or Botman pushes up to help Guimaraes to defend against the Brighton centre forwards who are trying to roam between the lines. With Newcastle now in possession, they set up into this 3-1 shape, with Trippier pushing higher up on his side, whilst Burns stays deeper to become a third centre-back. And with this 3-1 shape or 3-2 shape, I say 3-2 only because one of the 2 number 8s here will drop to try and support Guimaraes. On this occasion, it's Willock, with Joelinton then pushing higher into more of a number 8 role. With the movement of Trippier higher up the pitch, this does give more freedom to Almiron, so we get to see the product of that, with Almiron inside, Trippier pushing into more of a right wing position, and Newcastle starting their transition play as Willock drives away from his marker, and the Brighton pressing system is under stress as Gilmour was forced to try and cover Almiron narrowing, and Estepinian having pushed out to somewhat cover both Almiron and Trippier. The ball is played out to the left hand side, where Caicedo contests against Isaac, and we get to see Isaac in this wide midfield position against a centre midfielder come right back, with Isaac creating quite a good chance for Newcastle, although you could argue he should have went for the near post. Regardless, it creates a pretty great chance for Newcastle and an almighty scramble in the 6-yard box. Brighton are able to clear it, but we get to see that 3-1 shape counter press now, with Dan Burn having pushed higher to make it difficult to pass here into Danny Welbeck. And then, as mentioned earlier, this leads to Guimaraes being fouled and a Newcastle free kick, one of many. Okay, so moving on to the 26th minute, we have a slight adjustment here. We still have that 2-4 shape by Brighton, but with more distance between the centre backs and centre midfielders. An adjustment in the shape of the Newcastle press, where now it's more of a 3-2-4-1. Steele decides to play that longer ball rather than the shorter passes that they typically do, but given Newcastle's shape, Almiron is able to get out to Estupiñán immediately and win the ball back. And with that 3-2-4-1 shape, that then releases Willock into the space left by Estupiñán, as Estupiñán seeks to try and help put counter pressure and win the ball back. Of course, Trippier plays an early ball into that space vacated by Estupiñán. These early balls for the forwards here, number 8 to run into, was key to Newcastle's game. Another example of Newcastle playing those early balls into the channel was also in the 32nd minute. On this occasion, Dunk and Steele are able to recycle the ball towards the right, but Van Heck's nonchalant passing again reduces the time that Caicedo has on the ball against what is a very effective pressing unit. And so Joelinton, in concert with his teammates and the man marking, reduces this time even further, leading to Gross's long ball and Newcastle's man marking at the back being able to regain possession. So moving on to the 54th minute, we have a very brief moment where Newcastle are set up in this 3-1 shape again in midfield. They play the ball at the back and try and draw Brighton's 3-2-3-2 press onto them, eventually leading to Pope playing a longer ball over that press, looking to try and exploit that space on the right hand side of the Brighton defence, where we have Caicedo, who's really a centre midfielder, being played at right back as needs must, and Van Heck, who's not really a regular starter. Fortunately for Brighton, Dunk is able to regain possession and retreat to Steele, and Brighton retain possession, but under considerable pressure as they have been throughout. Okay, so we have another deep build-up by Brighton in a 2-4 shape. This is after the subs. So now we have Caicedo having moved from right back to centre midfielder, partnering McAllister, and this is against that 3-2-4-1 press that we saw earlier. Again, we have a centre forwards between the lines here with Unda, and we know that Brighton want to be able to pass into these centre midfielders narrow to create the transitionary moments, and so we see that with Caicedo eventually being able to then exploit the space created as the centre midfielders are pressed with a pass into the centre forward here dropping, and from there Brighton are able to progress into more of their midfield possession shape. Unfortunately, Brighton then try and force the play with a longer ball into Ferguson, which is unfortunately intercepted. Newcastle try and play aggressively, going for that counter-attack immediately, but Brighton win the ball back. It's a bit attritional, eventually leading to yet another Newcastle free kick. Okay, so 81st minute, we have yet another example of Brighton's deep build-up, again after the substitutions, initially starting with those short passes, trying to draw the Newcastle press up the pitch to create those passing angles into the centre forwards between the lines, who can then combine with the Brighton centre midfielders. And so we see that here with Caicedo eventually being able to escape towards the left-hand side. And then we get, as mentioned in the tactical summary, one of the fullbacks pushing higher than the other, allowing the wide midfielders to be able to then narrow. This eventually allows Brighton to be able to move into that 2-4 or 2-3 midfield shape, with their forwards all narrowing into the centre of the pitch and one of the two fullbacks providing the width. One of McAllister and Caicedo here will want to try and get up the pitch and support the attack or contest crosses, but you also have to note just the considerable amount of space that is left for the Newcastle counter-attacks if this goes pear-shaped. Brighton eventually get the ball here into Pepuillon, who's immediately closed down and fouled, leading to a free kick. And with that, if you enjoy the video, consider giving it a like, sharing it on social media, and subscribing. If you enjoy the Premier League tactical analysis, have a look at our playlist. And with that, we're out.